In our GDST subject collaboration meetings in the spring term, we noted the following key trends in the use of educational technology across the organization. To talk about such trends, I like to note a popular visualization in the adoption of new technologies from Jeffrey Moore's book, Crossing the Chasm. The basic premise is that with any new technology, there will be a low number of tech enthusiasts that quickly adopt new technologies. However, before any new technology is adopted by the majority of the population, Moore notes that the most challenging transition is what he calls the chasm between the early market and the mainstream market, meaning the gap between early adopters and the mainstream adoption of new technologies is the most difficult part. In many ways, the changes brought about from the pandemic have springboarded educators across this chasm into the mainstream adoption of technology in schools for teaching and learning. This leap across the chasm has been fueled by the need for technology to facilitate online learning. Evidently, we've seen teachers quickly and quite remarkably showcase their ingenuity, creativity, and resilience to adopt new pedagogies at great speeds to continue to provide engaging learning opportunities for students during these difficult times. But we know that technology itself does not equate to higher quality learning. To better understand how technology is being used in our schools and to strategically map out EdTech directions in CPD programming, we have made reference to the SAMR Model, a multi-level framework to help categorize the ways in which technology can be used in teaching and learning. At the bottom of this model is substitution, in which technology acts as a direct substitution for established practices, with little to no functional change to the tasks themselves. We saw this primarily at the beginning of guided home learning through teacher-directed lesson videos and the digitization of student tasks. Essentially, the first stage represents this rush that we had to move pre-existing resources and learning activities to an online setting, and there was little to no functional change in the way that the learning was facilitated itself. However, the next stage of this model is augmentation, in which technology acts as a direct substitution, but with some functional improvements. So for example, using automated quizzes to collect formative data off students, the use of live collaborative functionality of traditional docs, so whether that be Google Docs or Microsoft Docs, the rise of verbal and video feedback for students through tools such as the Mote Chrome extension or built-in tools in the Microsoft Notebook. We see a lot of feedback being given in these new ways. And finally, breakout rooms that enable students to work with various groupings of peers without the logistical complexities of having to move students around the physical classroom. The third stage of this model transitions from using technology to enhance learning to using technology to transform learning. So through modification, technology allows for significant task redesign. That is, using technology to change the way content is delivered and students interact with one another and demonstrate understanding. So most evidently, we see an increase in the number of teachers utilizing things like flipped learning to make the most out of that whole class time together. We see collaboration tasks that reach beyond just the individual class, so maybe using technology to collaborate with other classes within the school or maybe in the local area or even across the GDST. We're seeing a lot of the use of multimedia for students to demonstrate their understanding. This is greatly on the rise. So many teachers are experimenting with new media to modify tasks that they had before to integrate more of that multimedia. So whether that be through screen recordings or maybe stop motion videos, podcasts, just using new forms of media to help students demonstrate their understanding of content. And finally, there's been examples of longer term projects across subject areas where previously lessons might have been organized into daily topics. There is a greater desire to create more things like weekly topics where students may participate in a teacher-led task on that topic, a collaborative task on that topic, and maybe an individual task on that topic. So we're giving more agency over to the students to be able to move through content in various different ways instead of a more teacher-directed day-to-day lesson routine. And you can find out more about this sort of trend in the GDST Mixed Model Learning report. Now, the final stage of the SAMR model is redefinition, in which technology allows for the creation of an entirely new task that was previously inconceivable. Now, there's a lot of crossover between this stage and the previous modification stage, but how I like to differentiate between these stages is noting the authenticity of curriculum. So are we getting students to connect with experts in the field? Are we getting them to solve authentic problems linked to the content that we're teaching them? Or do students really experience the authentic application of the content they're learning in the real world? So these are the 4 stages of SAMR. In the first round of guided home learning, many GDST schools were in the substitution or augmentation stages of technology use. But as we progressed through the weeks and became more comfortable with the technology tools, training and the sharing of ideas seemed to evolve into more of an augmentation phase where we were using technology with that functional improvement. The second round of guided home learning excitingly showed an incredible climb towards modification. So teachers were not only augmenting learning through additional functionality of tools, but we're also starting to explore new ways to approach the facilitation of teaching and learning, noting those trends that I went over previously. So it's through teachers' incredible efforts and commitment to student achievement that we're able to cross this so-called chasm of technology use in schools. And as we return to some sort of normalcy as lockdown eases off, it's crucial that we don't, and mind my Canadianism here, toboggan back down the slope to the way things were done before lockdown. Instead, we look to utilize new EdTech skills and pedagogies to continue to be pioneers in and shapers of the future of girls' education. So I urge you, let's not go back to the way things were before. Let's continue to be innovative and use these newly gained technology skills to continue to push forward to increase the quality of education we're providing students. Take stock of what worked well during guided home learning and see if it would work in the mixed model learning format as well.